Today, on the early morning show, tyrants make bad taskmasters. Why men find women's leadership cringy. Let's cue the rooster and get this show started.
Every time I need that shit, devil make another.
Hey man, if you got something that you believe in and you believe that you can do it and nobody else do, just go for it. It's your life.
My life is moving fast, I gotta slow it down. Yeah, now I got it, they all come around. But when I ain't have it, they nowhere to be found. Yeah, I had to stick with the ones who stay down. And now a lot of people say I changed on them, because I'm whipping in the range on them. I don't think I'm acting different, I just found out that these folks ain't in my interest.
Good morning and welcome to the early morning show. Before I go on any further, make sure you smash that like button, share this video, and subscribe to the channel. We need you. Now today's juicy topic on the early morning show is tyrants make bad taskmasters. Why men find women's leadership cringy. This title, I believe, is apropos to why men run from and not towards female leadership. The saying tyrants make bad taskmasters was originally used to point out that mean, cruel, or bitter people make bad managers of the people that have to work under them or rely upon them in business. Now, the reason women still have a problem with men accepting them as leaders is not based solely as much on their gender as it is based upon their double standard way they treat the males they are charged to lead. Now, this women's movement always runs into a snag or loses followers once it chews up and spits out its own followers, and a great percentage of them are men. While even females admit that they prefer to work for males rather than other females. Now, both genders admit that women try to carve a stick out in the business world for themselves by belittling, controlling, or throwing the people beneath their authority under the bus. And this behavior has proven true at the workplace as well as in the home. Now, I personally find it a scary notion that a woman will lead the world one day, and that it seems that they are taught not to have humanity for anyone that is not a woman. The only thing I see coming from this group is an us against them mentality, and I don't want to be led by a group that sees me as less than a human or a them. From this group, we hear such beautiful comments that they are more loving and giving or caring than men. But all of those comments come without evidence. Actually, the opposite comes to mind when I think of their leadership. I imagine words like cold, bitter, and vengeful. So it is when they are placed in a leadership position that you will learn what chafing under the tyrant really feels like. If you are a man who wants to better for yourself, you will move along to greener pastures, which is exactly what they want you to do. See, tyrannical authority in the right woman's hands is a tool to make you leave a job or a relationship and in your wake to put someone they really like in there instead. In many cases, you are replaced by another woman, which has more to do with sexism than it has to do with equality. Now, this group on many fronts decries equality, but in actuality is far from it. At home, this group fights the men in their life for equality, although these men have no authority to grant them the equality or freedom they seek. They seek in the workaday world. They can't do it. It is easy for these women to attack the peaceful men they live with rather than go head to head against men outside the home or the government who holds the authority. To me, this cowardly behavior of beating down the man that loves you while shutting your mouth in public with the men who don't care will never get you what you desire. I call it a public face which has a very nasty private persona. Now, these women are only allowed to hurt the men that support them or the society that has to endure them because we allow them to in order not to hurt their feelings while they hurt us factually. They hurt us for real. Now, I'm reminded of a quote by the famed Frederick Douglass, who said this about tyrants. Tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress. In other words, these women go just as far as we allow them to oppress us for their personal gains. If we would not allow it, they would not do it. But because we have no limits of what we tolerate from them, they keep pushing and pushing the boundaries of our limits. In essence, we have become slaves to their every claim of inequality, while they offer new forms of reverse inequality against us. This reminds me of the words of Jose Rizal, who had this to say about tyrants. There can be no tyrants where there are no slaves. Now imagine for a moment, if you will, with the modern day female tyrant who gives society a my way or the highway choice, set against the backdrop of every tyrant that ever graced this planet. There you will see they believe that the people under them are less than they. Peasants, if you will. Girls are taught at a very young age that they are smarter and that boys are stupid. Once they reach adulthood, if they date, marry, or supervise men, they treat them right out of this same false belief. What they forgot to tell these young girls is that no one is smarter than anyone else when it comes to a chosen profession. See, you can give me the most learned professor in the world and I will show you a man who would fall flat on his face at a bricklayer's job that he might have believed was beneath him. Or perhaps if that bricklayer thought they were better than a person who was a flower arranger for a living, I will show you a bricklayer who would kill the sales at a flower shop overnight. See, the word smart is only relative to the side of the block you are currently standing on when you say it. But in the eyes of these naive women, men become little more than slaves for their amusement and entertainment. As male slaves, they should never enjoy the respect or admiration of someone within their group, namely the group of women just like them. So in order to counteract this tyranny, we have to become more knowledgeable of the damage that is being levied against the male citizen. Mr. Bill Richards once said this about tyrants. Ignorance has always been the weapon of tyrants. Enlightenment, the salvation of the free. You see, we have to stop going along with this mindless acceptance of soul-crushing tyranny just because we are afraid of not being in the majority of society's feelings about a time where all men went to work in the past like slaves and all women stayed at home in the house. The sad fact of the matter is that the last time most of us spoke our minds freely and did what we thought was right was when we were little children, a long time ago. Now, as we grew older, we grew colder and assimilated into the crowd of understanding like members of the Borg on the television show Star Trek. Or in the words of William Ing about tyrants. In all tyrannies a country can suffer, the worst is the tyranny of the majority. In other words, the fear that one can be canceled in a modern day culture because they swim against the tide of ignorance blasted by the megaphones of tyrants. Those of us who have allowed our voices to remain silent as laws have been written upon the books to imprison men in the quest for women's freedom don't understand the words of Jefferson, who wrote this about tyrants. Law is often the tyrant's will, and always so when it violates the rights of the individual. For the early morning show, this is Charles Rivers. As we close, I leave you with the faces of tyrants who impose their will on the people. A will that up front sounded good, but in the end destroyed the societies they were able to influence. And I challenge you to stay around for the picture of the last tyrant, for that is the worst. Thank you.
Living in my own world. 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 Oh, state of mind.
California dreaming.
State of mind.
California scheming.
State of mind.
California is the reason for this golden state of mind. California dreaming. California scheming. California is the reason for this golden state of mind.
Open mind and you'll find what you've been missing.
don't waste my time and never try to tell me different. There I go again, ignoring my own advice. But take my word for it, man, I've been living nice. Like the bottom of some skis on a January morning. Up in Aspen sipping cocoa. I prefer my women foreign. Don't disturb me if I'm snoring, let me be. Cause you gotta get your rest to be a king. I would not expand your mind, girl, you too fine not to. Don't let me leave with someone that is